Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Coder Conversations. If you want to catch up on any previous episode or contact us, visit us at www.coderconvos.com. I'm your host, Kevin, and I'm with.
Brian Russick, professional drummer, drum teacher based out of Suffolk County, Long Island, New
Oh
York.
my God.
You
All
can
right.
find me on the web
All
at.
right. Brian, I'm sorry. I'm interrupting. I don't care. I'm from Long Island and Queens. This is a vibe.
Oh,
All right.
wow. Okay.
All right.
You
Okay. I
can, you
know.
can
I get
find
it.
me. You can find me on the web at brianrussick.com.
Awesome. And for tonight's guest, we have Jessie Nelson, UI UX, and also a musician. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on.
Yeah, it's definitely a pleasure. So, yeah, just to get things started, can you give us a little bit about your background? Like, how did you get started in UI UX? And can you explain the musician part as well?
Well, I've been and still am a professional drummer for almost 20 years, 15 of them here in New York City. I just finished an off-Broadway show. I currently work in musical theater most of the time. I work in jazz, R&B, and everything else for hire as well. I've DJed at the Ace Hotel in New York for 5 years. I DJed New York Fashion Week this year. I was a former music journalist when the Village Voice was still a thing when I was 20. I've had kind of a ride. I've had a whole deal. And I have also been again, professional drummer along with a drum educator as well. And I jumped into UI UX during the pandemic because I have also been a high school substitute teacher for 11 years.
Wow.
I teach at LaGuardia Art and Design and Frank Sinatra, the three arts high schools in the city. And it's time for me in the classroom to be done. And so during the pandemic, I wanted a way into tech that wasn't coding. And,
Right.
as a co-current musician and educator, I have communication skills that you can't buy. You're talking to people, different people every single day, and having to figure out what they want and how do they want it and how can I solve their problem and how quickly can I solve it.
Yeah.
And so, I've seen like a good fit. But then to be honest, again, it's been 4 years and I have, I did this kind of, on my own. I took online classes. I did a mix and match of things. I've had design mentors. And the job market for that has now tanked. So
Yes.
getting into that, yeah.
Yes,
That being said, I still have a resume and a portfolio. I know how to build a mobile app. But I got heavily into designing websites for artist clients. That's kind of where I went. And we know that's a UI UX kind of a deal as well. There's UI UX involved in that. And so I'm busy working on going into web design and putting a clientele together because I think that's my way into this. And it's funny too because when I got in my part of my UX journey, I did a lot of what everybody does. I did some internships, and the first one I did was for a small music production company, and it was a UX research gig. And I'm so damn glad that was the first internship I had out of the gate because I figured out I knew how to do it. I didn't want to do it. I had like no interest, but I knew, but I was glad that, but I learned. I learned the ins and outs, and I could make journey maps and do user profile. Like I knew how to do it, so that was cool.
awesome.
But I was like, that is not my gig. Never mind. Um, and then I got into, and then I was busy, just working on learning how to build things. And I got really into building mobile apps and really into building websites. And excuse my French, but I was like, I like building shit. I like making stuff. So that's when I realized, the design is the way to go because I didn't care about research. Like I have a master's degree, I know how to do all that, but I really didn't care. So so I've got a small portfolio and a small resume, and because the job market is what it is, I kind of said, you know what, the full-time gig thing or any of that isn't going to happen. Plus, being so still in the game, again, I just finished an off-Broadway show downtown here in New York City. I was working on that for a month. Having that flexibility is still very important to me. Being able to do both. So I'm busy just kind of looking for freelance. I mean, I would like to. The original plan was to freelance this whole deal. Like that was the game plan, and that still is the game plan. But again, everything being as the landscape that we are all currently in. Tech is in a weird spot right now.
It's taken a dive. That's
Yeah,
for
yeah, it
sure.
is.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. But I also know, like my whole deal is not what most job interview. They knew what was what, but it makes me great. and especially especially the people skills that I have that you cannot buy in terms of communicating, because every time I would answer an interview question that was, well, what would you do if the client didn't like what you worked on or didn't, need to make changes? And I would be like, this is not about me. It's the same thing as when I take a gig. The gig is not about me. What am I doing for the music director, or what am I doing for the person that hired me?
Sure.
And I said, it's the exact same thing. And I can't tell you how many people were like, oh my God, like that was such a revelation. But for me, it was a no-brainer, because again, you're on a gig, so you're making the person that hired you happy, or you are, I'm teaching in a classroom. It's not about me. What do the kids need, and how do we get this done? Those kind of things, So I just think the landscape being what it is, it's tough for people that have years of experience.
Yeah.
So
True.
that's the information I have at this moment.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly the tech market tanked. Like it seemed like, everything was fantastic, and then once Elon Musk had the X layoffs, then
It was
everybody
a
followed
wrap.
suit.
Yeah, it was a wrap at that point.
And downhill from there.
Right, and also correct, yes, downhill from there, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
also, the whole AI nonsense, which I have conflicting thoughts about.
Yeah. Oh, so do we.
I don't.
Trust
I'm
me.
sure.
So do we.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
We talk about
Yeah,
it a
yeah,
lot on this show, actually.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Like,
And I feel like go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
No, just as creatives, period. I
Yeah.
don't think what we do can be replaced by a machine, and I don't think the world wants sterile art.
Exactly.
Like I just don't. Like, I'm sorry. Like I'll tell you, this is kind of relevant. So this show I just did, Matter the Musical, was something they brought over from London, and then I worked on it, and it was great. Cool. That being said, I played that show on an electronic drum set, and I'm bringing this up to make a total point. And I've done, e-kits, e-drum sets in a musical theater context is not new. They do it on Broadway. I've worked on smaller things where they have done that. So this wasn't news. Okay. Was I happy about it? Not really, but I was also kind of like, I don't have to move it. So we're going to make this work. That is fine. But, and I had so many people come up to every show and be like, oh my God, I really thought there was an acoustic kit in the room.
Oh,
which
wow.
is great. Cool. But my point is, my apologies if I'm a little convoluted here. What am I getting at? Okay. So the conduit was not an acoustic thing, was not a living, breathing deal. It was something that had a brain attached. And if you hit, Brian, about e-kits, you hit them one way, they do one thing, you hit them someplace else, they do something else, and programming them is a pain in the ass.
Correct.
So like the point was like, I was the living, breathing human making the music sound like it did.
Right.
Like AI is not going to do that.
Exactly.
So that's my thought about that. That's my 2 cents.
And like AI doesn't have technically it doesn't have any emotions. So how is it going to be able to convey that in music that's not like a copy of somebody else's music?
Well, and even we talk about. I mean, I'm sorry. I think if Prince and Miles Davis and people we love had lived long enough, I don't think they would have been happy about any of it either. I mean, Miles and Prince were innovators, and they were always what's new, what's next. But they also would have been like, sorry, not happening.
Exactly.
And then on the other end of that, because Miles was like this, Prince was like this, I am like this as an artist, Brian, you might be too. I'm always interested in what's new, what's next, and I love the idea of integrating technology. In fact, okay, Brian, the jazz drummer John Hatfield?
What group is he from?
He's not. He's just like a freelance John Hatfield.
Oh, no, I never heard of him.
Okay, well, I went to see him at New Blue a few weeks ago. I'm bringing this up to make a point. He's a heavyweight jazz guy, and he's great. Okay. Anyway, I'll email you. I'll email you his shit on LinkedIn later. You can listen.
Yeah.
But my point is, I went to see him at New Blue, and he had his acoustic kit. He had some percussion stuff, and he had a whole electronic SPD pad and a setup and a bunch of stuff going on. Now, did that enhance what they were doing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's like something as a player, as somebody who is, I have a jazz group called Line Tilter. We're a Robert Glasper, Mark Juliana inspired group. I take it out once in a while. We do, Pat Metheny and Jaco Pastorius tunes and and that kind of
Nice.
heavyweight kind of stuff. Okay, and
Do
that's a
you like well, let me just interject. Do you like
sorry.
Tony Williams? Are
Yes.
you a Tony
Okay.
Williams
Tony
fan?
Williams was the entire reason I started playing drums. When I was a flute player before I was a drummer. When I was 17, I
Yeah.
heard Tony Williams on Miles Davis' Seven Steps to Heaven and said, I need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
That's why
incredible
I
that
started. That's it.
Miles Davis picked him when he was 17 years old and brought
Yeah.
him into his group. I
Right.
mean, it's
Correct.
just to me, that's remarkable to be 17
Yes.
and now you're playing with Miles Davis. Like, how good do you have to be? And
Yes.
he was that good, you
Yes.
know? Yeah,
Yeah.
he's probably my favorite drummer, actually.
Mine, yeah, in my top 5, Questlove is another one. Elvin Jones is another one.
Elvin Jones, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Elvin
Coltrane.
freak. Yes,
Exactly.
Al Foster, who just passed away,
Mhm.
is really amazing. Al Foster used to play with Carmen McRae, and Carmen McRae is one of my favorite jazz singers. But anyway, point being is, I think they would have, like all these people that Tony and Elvin and Miles and Prince, people who are gone. I think they would have embraced the technology because as an artist, I really love technology. Like I love that, but I don't think AI is tech. It's like technology with a bad taste in your mouth,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's not. No, you know what I mean. It's not the same thing as like buying an electronic keyboard or buying an electronic drum pad or buying, things that you still have to be the person with the brain.
Yeah, it's not a tool. It's like beyond that. It's like a human replacement.
Yes. Yeah. And it's. I mean, I'm sure I don't have to know too much. I'm sure the three of us don't want to live in a sterile world. But that's
Absolutely.
kind of, I
Yeah.
think that's so like not. And Brian, you know this from one drummer to another. What we do is organic. It's a living, breathing thing.
It is, and, like, what I teach to my students is feel, and
Right.
so I've, been asked, "Oh, why don't you do online lessons?" And my answer to that is, how am I supposed to teach someone feel through a camera? You
Correct.
know, like, when I do my lessons, I'll be standing there right next to the kit, hitting the
Mm-hmm.
hi-hat,
Mm-hmm.
hitting the bell on the ride cymbal to keep that time, to keep
Yep.
that metronome going, and to get
Yep.
the student to realize, "Oh, this is where the feel's supposed to be."
Yes.
And you can't, you just can't do that online. You can't do that through a camera.
No, no. Here and there in my life, I've taught online lessons once in a while. I'm not a fan. I'm just not. I would
Yeah.
rather be in the room because there's also we talk about, this, Brian, you talk about demonstrating things.
Yeah.
Like you want to sit down and demonstrate, you do it in 2 seconds. Oh, scooch. You show them the concept, you break it down, you slow it down, and then they sit back down and you go from 0 to
Correct.
20. But
Yeah.
like you can't do that if it doesn't. No, I 100% agree. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was it like actually making a living as a musician? Because we had a few on, on the show, but it's like they eventually pivoted into something else because I guess the industry's
No,
kind of unstable.
no, I mean, you know what? Okay, so like when just a little more background to make a point. So I'm a native New Yorker, Long Island, Queens, blah, blah, blah. I moved to Phoenix for a long time. My parents got divorced. My dad is here. My mom is there. Okay. And I did my undergrad for music at Arizona State. And when I got out, I was 25 and I was playing jazz gigs and blah, blah, blah. But what was I doing? I was playing jazz gigs. I was teaching drum lessons one night a week, at a store. And I was substitute teaching during the day. So I just did that. Okay. And then I moved to New York, and because I'm a lunatic, I started my graduate program at Brooklyn College and played my first off Broadway show all in the same month because I'm nuts. But that's what I
Wow.
did.
That's fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Me at 43, other story. I was like 29, so I could do all that and be okay at the end of the day. But sorry. Oh, so after my master's degree, when I finished my graduate degree in 2011, I lived on gigs for 5 years. I did it. And just financially it got tight. And I mean, I was working a lot, but again, money is what money was. And it wasn't stretching. So I said, you know what? I know how to substitute teach. Let me go do that. So I did. And I got moving. And so I was doing and have continued to do the teaching, working on shows, gigging combo. It's 15, 16 years later. So I'm not pivoting into anything. What I wanted to do was get out of the classroom because music's a separate department.
Yeah.
Music's a whole separate deal. Me in the classroom and the Department of Education need to be done. And I've had the privilege. I've had the privilege of working with some really incredible. I've played with the kids at LaGuardia. I taught with the band program at Frank Sinatra for years. Like I've done some really awesome work. I don't love it enough to do it full time, and it's because of the back end shit. It's not because of the kids. I work
Yeah.
with some
I
really amazing
mean,
teachers, but it wasn't.
I'll tell you this just from my own experience. I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
I know where that
just
is.
right across the water from
Mhm.
Long Island, where I'm at now. And I decided to go to Western Connecticut State because they have a really good jazz program there, or so I thought. And I went to audition and I didn't get in. I was devastated. So I just started taking general classes at the college and figured,
Mhm.
okay, I'll wait until next year and I'll audition again.
Mhm.
And at this point, I was kind of a pretty big fish in a small pond in Connecticut. A lot
Right.
of people knew who I was. People knew the bands I was playing in. But like when I went out to LA, no one knew who I was. So
Right.
that totally
Right.
changed the game. But this one teacher, he basically said, hey, maybe I'll see you one day on like a rock gig or a metal CD, but you'll never play jazz. Can you
Uh,
imagine someone saying you as a kid, someone saying that to you?
right. I'm interjecting and talking over you.
No, all good.
Yeah, but and that's funny that you said that because no, I'm sorry, I'm being super, but I'm excited. This is good. um, my story is a little bit typical. I have done every single thing I've been told I wasn't good enough
Yeah.
to do. I played drums. I took lessons for a semester. I auditioned. They let me in. 2 years later, I got told, "Oh, you're not good enough. You should go write about music." I said, I'm not leaving. So what are we doing?"
Yeah.
And they said, well, you can get your BA in music, but you can't get the jazz performance degree, which is what I wanted. And I said, what's the difference? And they said, well, it's the whole same deal, but without the recital requirement. And I looked at them and I said, can I take lessons every semester? They said, yeah. I said, can I play in ensembles every semester? They said, yeah. I said, okay. And I did everything. I did African
Awesome.
drum. I played jazz vibes. Jazz vibes is awesome, by the way. I don't do that. I don't get to do it a lot, but when I do, it's so much fun. Jazz vibes, African drum, orchestral stuff, big band, small group. I went nuts. By the time I graduated, I was practicing 6 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week. And so by
Wow.
the time I got out, I was working. And I was the only working female drummer in Phoenix because it was 2006. And I was
Okay.
gigging with
I could
guys
see
who
that.
hated. Yeah, yeah. And I was gigging with guys who hated me for $200 a night. Yeah, they didn't know what to do
See,
with a.
that's the thing with session work. It's like, okay, you're getting hired, but because they have to pay you, they resent you. Has that been your experience?
You know what? What you just brought up is something I hadn't thought of, Brian, but it's completely possible.
Yeah. So I
And
mean,
never,
can I
and
just speak?
that entire concept never crossed my mind, but that doesn't mean it wasn't true.
Yeah, and I just speak to that in terms of Los Angeles. Like, LA is a huge music hub, as is
Right,
New York, as is
right,
Nashville. But,
right, right.
just my general, I was out there for about 10 years. My
Uh-huh.
general experience of doing session work was
Right,
okay, you get hired for a gig, you get a gig off Craigslist, wherever you get it, word of mouth. And
right.
then you're on the gig and then you're just like, wow, like these people don't like me.
Yeah,
And they won't
yeah,
necessarily say it to your
yeah,
face that they don't like you, but you could just tell from their energy, like, oh wow, like they're just paying me and they're resenting me because they have to pay me because you can't just get in LA, you can't just get a drummer to show up for free because you got to bring your equipment. So no one's gonna do that. So you got to at least be getting like, $100 a show.
yeah, yeah. Well, and the jazz stuff, we were playing. Hold on, I'm sorry. I just lost the thing. Crap. Okay, we're here. I'm sorry. We right. No, I mean, I was like, we were playing restaurants, we were playing weddings, so it was a little bit of a different thing. Like, we weren't like doing the club scene. These are very
Yeah,
structured in out kind of gigs. Um,
nice.
but I kept getting hired because I played good time.
Yeah,
Well, hang on. I played good time. I was reliable and I was professional. I was the woman with the car showing up at 6 o'clock for the 7 p.m. hit. Why? Because you be ready to go. That's
yeah,
it. Like, I just worked. I just put my head down and put up with a lot of shit and just worked.
yeah.
And and then I remember when I went to New York and I worked out my first off-Broadway show, and I had to learn how to do musical theater. Like, I had to learn. I could read music. That wasn't the problem. But I had to learn just the whole construction of what that gig entailed.
Totally different. Yeah,
Yeah, and
totally
that's
different
that's
gig.
a whole different skill set, and I've been through
Yeah.
hell and back, but here we are.
Do you
Um,
enjoy it though?
I do. You know what? I love the doing. And as a woman
Yeah.
who has loud and proud had 5 Broadway subbooks under her belt, I have not been able to play any of them because things have closed before I've gotten in there, but I have gone through that process.
Okay.
And I love the doing, and I love play. I learned Beetlejuice, I learned Kimberly Akimbo, I learned Jagged Little Pill. Like, I love the playing really high level shit and killing it. I remember when I was learning Beetlejuice, I spent 2 hours in a practice room one day working on two measures of music. Okay, I felt like
Yeah.
such a badass when I walked out of there because I could get the quad triplet bass drum while you're doing some other shit, and it was the whole thing. But I was like, yeah, but that's the level of what that's the level you're working at, where it's like minutia, where you're
Right.
super, but it's great. So no, the show I just worked on that I just spoke about, I kicked the crap out of that from day one rehearsal, and we were kicking ass every single night. And that's like when you're in that flow state with this stuff, it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That
I
can
mean,
be.
to me, it all boils down to, whatever you want to call it, feel, groove.
Mhm.
It's almost like intangible. You can't really grab onto it, but it's a
Mhm.
part of you, and we all have it.
Yes.
We're all musicians at heart, I
Yes.
think.
Yes.
Like you can teach anyone an instrument, but it's just, who has the focus. So I
Yes.
always tell my younger students,
Mhm.
hey, if you don't have the focus, we're not going to do this because I'm not a babysitter. When
Mhm.
I come here, we're going to work. And
Mhm.
if they're not
Mhm.
game for that, then I move along.
Mhm. Brian, you teach like I do. Seriously.
Okay.
Like,
Awesome.
you teach exactly like I do. Like if you want to work, I will
Awesome.
help you to the ends of the earth. If you're going to do nothing and just skate by, go find another teacher.
Yeah. Go find someone else and do
Yep.
that.
Yeah, totally. But
Because it's
also
babysitting. It becomes babysitting at
yes,
that
yeah,
point.
it does. It totally does. You're right. And again, I love the doing, but I've had to learn, like, because something else that has happened is when I was knocking on doors and this and that and da da da, and when you kind of don't know what's happening, people are really nice to you. And then when you get your act together, people get real weird real quick.
Yeah.
And by mentors of mine, I have been told, Jess, now they say it's because now you're walking on the same line and you're a threat, and that's the problem.
Right.
And I said, you know what? Cool. I've earned it. I don't care. I say to people quite a bit. I've dealt with Broadway in the Department of Education. I am scared of nobody and nothing.
Yeah.
So give it to me. Like I don't give a fuck. Excuse my French.
Right.
Woo. But and always classic, yes. but but my point is that I think listening to people who Brian, you probably know this, especially because you did the LA thing. There are
Yeah.
so many people in this business for the wrong reasons.
Oh, yeah.
And when I say people, I mean grown adults, like people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they're great players. They do this high level work, but as humans, the character, man, lack of character.
Yeah, like what I've noticed is some guys are just in it for the women. They're just in it for being
Wow.
seen,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
like,
I wasn't. That's not what I was thinking, but sure, go ahead.
yeah. No, I'm
that
just
that
saying,
wasn't where my head went, but go
I
ahead.
have met some people that, you could just tell they love being on stage for the attention, and they love people coming up to them after the gigs. And it's like, how much into the music are you
hmm
actually, and how much are you into people coming
Uh
up to
huh.
you afterwards?
Correct. Yeah. Well, and then the place I was going to go before you brought that up, because I totally spaced on it, was they're into it for all the validation,
Validation.
because they're not right
Yeah.
here, and they're validation. They're not right here, and they're not right here. And if you're not right this way, you're going to be looking outside of you. I have a yes and no good friend so much now, but somebody who's in the industry pretty heavy, and he's a drum educator and blah blah blah. And something I had to say to him was, dude, the whole world's paying attention to you right now because
Yeah.
of X, Y, and Z. I suggest you look at yourself in the mirror, because if you didn't have X, Y, and Z professionally, I really wonder how many of those people
Yeah.
would be around. And I went for it because I was like, I'm sorry, it's really nice that you're endorsed by everybody in the world. That's very cool. That's not going to mean shit when
Exactly.
things go down in like life, but I'm also like 7 years older than him, and that's a different thing. But I had that discussion with somebody, but I can see it. But you have to, like, you both know this, like you have to do enough work on
Oh, yeah.
yourself to get to that point where you see people's crap. And to tell you the truth, it's helpful in the sense of, like, now if I'm at a rehearsal, on a gig, emailing somebody about a gig or any of those things, subbing, whatever, depending on how they respond, or if they respond, or whatever it is, I'm now instantly in a place where I'm like, oh, you know what, their character's not right. This is not gonna be a respectful, productive connection. I don't need to be here. And I just remove
Yeah. You
myself, and
just
then you
keep
keep
moving.
going,
Yeah.
but yes, but I had to learn. Like, it took me, like, I had a heavy, like, 4 years of inner work plus while I was learning Beetlejuice and Kimberly Akimbo back to back. Like I spent more time alone with myself than I knew what to do with. Most of that was in a practice room.
Wow.
And you know damn well, Brian, that you spend enough time
Yeah.
like that, shedding plus the internal work, blah, blah, blah. You don't come out of that not swinging.
Yeah.
That's real. But that's not like, I didn't make that one up. That's real. But then, also like kind of going, okay, well, if you're in this middle spot with this whole thing, I've had some people kind of be like, oh, well, it doesn't matter that you got the books because you didn't get the gig. And I said, well, freaking hold it. Sorry, they don't hand those out. I earned every single thing I've ever had. And the slickest thing I did was the smartest thing I did was I made the last book I had. I made excerpt clips with the tracks. So anybody in the world wants to see them, they're in a Dropbox folder, and it becomes, hi, you're wrong. You're factually incorrect. But, I'm having to fight and advocate for myself, but I'm doing it because I know what I bring to the table. But again, it took me until 43 to like know this. Me now. I wish me now had existed 5 to 10 years ago.
Well,
my career would have been totally different.
everything in hindsight, right? We could always
right.
see everything crystal clear in hindsight, but in the moment, is for some reason it's so difficult to see certain things. And I know when I was younger, some people took advantage of my niceness, my kindness, and you start to get cold, you start to get kind of rigid because of how people treat you.
Yeah, and I've started to, as I've seen kind of what's been what, I had a long time drum buddy of mine, somebody I knew for a decade, who I still absolutely respect professionally, all good. But last year I had somebody say to me, who again was pro drum family and in the musical theater world and in the industry world with the gear and those kind of things. And he texted me one day out of the blue and said, "You've never been more motivated, more together, more organized. I can't be friends with you anymore right now." And I remember staring at that going, are you for real? We're in our 40s.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
What the hell is wrong with you? But not just him, but other people. When I was a mess, when I was not, and I'm sorry if this is going in the wrong direction, if you need to switch gears.
No, you're good.
With topics, folks. I just realized, I'm like, oh my God, this is not my show.
Improvise, much like jazz. We improvise every show. We don't do the whole like 20 questions. Oh, where did you go to school? What was your first job? I mean, and that's interesting, but to us, we like to see, okay, what is the person really about? Who are they and what gets them going? That we like to focus on that more than anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're okay, I'm
free.
okay. Yeah. But to finish and then keep moving is that, when I didn't have my head together, when I was working, I was gigging, I was working, I was teaching, I was doing, that wasn't the problem. But when I wasn't together up here, people loved me. People treated me pretty damn well. The minute I wasn't in the below position and I was standing, eye to eye straight across, then
everything's
things got
cuckoo. Some people, they prefer to be below them. That's when they're cool with you. But when you start leveling off with them, then it changes.
Maybe, yeah. And I see that one coming.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't. I was kind of like, well, hold it. I sound amazing. My head's clear. I'm working my butt off, and now I'm not worth your time.
Well, and it really hurts when it happens.
And
it really hurts when it happens with a friend, because you're like, wow, like I thought you were here for me, and now now that I'm at your level, or now that I've surpassed you, like in my situation, I surpassed a lot of people in the journey, and people would be bitter, people would be jealous. It's part and parcel. Like it's just part of the journey, and you learn to accept that. Okay, not like Kevin said, not everyone is here for you. They don't want to see you shine necessarily.
Yeah,
I know, and I had to. Correct, and I had to kind of go, okay, like, so I have a drum. I had to rebuild my pro drum crew. I have two of the best in the business. Patrick, I'll shout them out because they're amazing. Jessie Ray Litch, Leich, and Patrick Phelan. Patrick Phalen. They're two of the best drummers in the business. They're Broadway vets. They're incredible humans. And they are my two drum. They're my crew. But again, what happened when I got my act together as a player and a person, I attracted in people who saw it and went, oh yeah, Jess, we know that you know.
Right.
And when I got this off Broadway chair, they were the first two to be like, yeah, girl, okay, keep going, okay. but I'm talking about two men who had Broadway chairs, and they could have been, oh no, they were like, yes, got it, like, but that's how you know
Wow.
people's character is correct.
Yeah.
Like that's how you know. Because the other thing that got real weird with that gig, I had Broadway drummers asking to sub for me on that. I had people who treated me like shit for a decade, climbing up my behind last month when I got this thing. That got interesting real quick too. And I can't tell you, that got real, like, in my head, I was like, oh, you treated me like trash for like 10 years, but now you want to sub for me.
Right.
Nice. Yeah. But I also enjoyed being a complete class act about that. Like, I had a really good time sitting with my coffee in my pajamas and being like, thank you so much. If I need coverage, I'll let you know. Full well knowing you ain't on my sub list. Not happening.
I mean, taking the high road, right? It's always better to take the high road.
But I always do. But that's not news. But I've moved that way my entire life because I'm better than that, and I know it. And that's how you win.
Yes.
Because Brian, you know as well as I do how many people in our industry, especially in are you and I about the same age, right? 40s? Yeah.
I'm 38.
Okay, close enough. Join the party. But in that same range, these are supposedly grown adults, and they conduct themselves online like children.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And Brian, you and I aren't on socials yet, but we totally should be after this because yes, drums. But you'll see, like, I am very calculated and very controlled. If you're not talking to me, you don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm super, but that plus I don't go on the feeds. So if I'm not talking to you, I don't know what you're working on. And that was like the smartest move I made in the last 5 to 7 years, just to be like, I don't know. If I'm talking to you, I know what's going on. But I got super and that helped me out too, like mentally, like that helped me out. That was a good move to I use socials for work, but I stay out of there pretty hard.
Yeah, no, I've learned that. I've learned that as well. You can use the social media, but don't let it use you.
Yeah, like, it started to get stupid because, Brian, you know as well as I do, it's like, oh, so-and-so has this gig and why am I not on it? And you start to get crazy.
Yeah.
And I had a moment of like, if I do this, if I stay, looking at this stuff, I'm going to have to quit, and I'm not quitting. So I made that the rule. And that was it.
Yeah, good example of that. On my Instagram, I'm friends with this one guy. I won't say who he is, but he's now playing with Lady Gaga. And when I saw that, like, he did, I think that was a Super Bowl show, right? Halftime. So he was on that, and I just remember the first thought of my mind was, how the hell did he get that? I mean, not that he's bad. He's not bad. He's good. He's solid. He's good at kind of like a Travis Barker. Like, you're solid at what you do.
I know who you're talking about. I know who it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So he got that gig, and my first thought was just like, how the hell did he get this? But then I said to myself, you know what? He must have earned it. If he has it, he must have earned it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, like, and this is kind of a Broadway thing, involved thing. There have been people who have been given a lot of grace that I would not have been given. There are people who have had a show, screwed up on a show, got handed another show, and then got handed a tour. I know damn well I would not have been given the same grace.
Yeah.
And so my kind of response to that in my head has been, I stay in my own lane very hard. I keep my head down hard, and I do that on purpose, and I message who I need to message. I talk to who I want to talk to, but I don't shout, it's until I'm on the gig or the thing is happening, you don't hear from me, publicly. And that's kind of been the way to move, because unfortunately, again, we work in an industry where, and there are people that I've done theater gigs with, regional theater gigs with, even, who get bigger things and won't speak to me. And in my head, I want to be like, we're in the same gig in Vermont at the national tour of XYZ, and I'm not worth your time. Interesting.
Yeah,
somebody seen from the.
So I got.
Oh, I was just saying, somebody seen from the music business, it can seem incredibly like transactional. Like, when people want something from you, they're really cool, but then once you don't have anything to offer them, they just disappear. Like, you can't reach them.
True. And something else that I've seen that I think is hysterical, like, Brian, again, you and I'll get on IG, like, we'll do the thing. We should, if you want to.
Sure. Yeah.
But, like, I'll post, the gig post. And also, I love to cook and I love to read and I like to look at art. So I post that stuff here and there. Okay, fine.
Nice.
Here and there. Great. Whatever.
Yeah.
That being said, most of the time it's just the gig stuff. And there are people who I have done a wonderful job for who will never hire me again for their own, I don't know why, but they never have, but I've done a solid job, but they watch my stuff and I don't go in anybody's anything. So I don't show up, on the
Interesting.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in my
Interesting.
head, what started to happen, and I don't mind, this is just stuff. But in my brain, I'm like, you don't think I'm shit. Whoa, what's going on? Why are you watching my stuff? Right? You don't think I'm crap, remember? Oh, but I'm working, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, this is what I figure. Like, I'm learning how to navigate it and keep myself intact at the same time.
It's kind
Yeah.
of bittersweet, bittersweet.
I think sometimes
What do you
people
mean?
keep you in orbit in case something pops off, and then they can pop back in. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not,
Yeah, when that happens, I'll be emailing you both and being like, so, yeah. No, you know what? This is what I figure. Like, I'm the one that did the inner work to grow and become as solid as I can be. We're all human. Nobody is perfect, and we're not going for that. But we were and are going for emotionally healthy, because my playing got so much better once my head was not filled with all that shit.
Yeah.
That's real, and that was during the whole 2 years in the practice room bit. That was during that time. Like, my playing got so much better because I was letting go of people. I was letting go of this. I was doing that inner work. Like, I was just I was in it and on it, like on every level, because I had to be. Like, if I hadn't, when all that shit went down, I was at the end of 39. I was turning 40 in April the next year. And I said to myself, hold it. I'm not turning 40 and doing the next 10 the way we did the last 10.
Absolutely.
I refuse. So I went for it in the practice room while I was learning those books and doing all that inner work. And I was doing it concurrently, which was crazy. And I was working and doing everything else. But the point was, like, my back was sort of against the wall. And I have a mentor of mine. I'll shout her out. Do either of you know Lefray Sai? SCI is the last name. Do you know
No, not
Lefray?
familiar.
Do you know
no,
Lefray
no.
at all? No? Okay. Incredible woman. She's in her 50s, jazz blues drummer, played with everybody. She worked with Lincoln
wow.
Center jazz quite a bit. And I've known her since I was 21. She's a badass. And I spoke to her like the night before I turned 42, and we hadn't talked in a while. And I called her up and we talked, and I told her what was going on with the gigs. I told her what was going on with the personal stuff with the work. And she said to me, Jessie, I'm 10 years older than you, and most people don't do this kind of work.
Yeah.
And like, that work helped my playing out because I had the headroom. I had the headroom to like focus in a way that I hadn't before. Something like that. If that makes any sense.
Mm.
Like I had the mental space
Right.
to go in on the playing in a way that I hadn't. Like, my head was not divided in half.
Yeah, so it's like you did that inner work. You went through things to get to the other side of a tunnel, which maybe you've been in that tunnel for years, but finally, like, you see the light at the end of it, and then you become that light. You become, more easygoing or more easier to work with because you have done that work.
Yeah.
And you know what it takes.
Yeah,
at that
and you
point.
know what? Yeah, and I think that this off-Broadway show that I just finished was a testament to that, because I walked into that rehearsal, I was not worried about a damn thing. Like, I was just like, let's go, in my head. And we did the first rehearsal, everything was cool. I took my notes, all good. And I got a text from the MD like that night or the next day saying, hey, Jessie, great playing today, da-da-da. Good. And in my head, I said, check, good, okay,
awesome.
Now we keep going, and like, that was a nice place to be. And that was a new place to be, because I wasn't right. I was just like, I'm just going to do my job. I wasn't worrying about all the other shit. I didn't care who liked me. I didn't care about anything but making sure that when I sat down and downbeat came, we were, I was in it, on it, and let's go.
Yeah, you know where the one is.
So, okay, but
you always
I had
got to know where the one is.
Yes, yeah, yes. That is what Brian, I'm sure between the two of us, we got gig stories for days, but I don't know how many gigs you've been on where like the time starts to get, not from you, but like the people around you. And you're having to be like, this is where one is, what is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for letting me be a chatterbox on your podcast.
No worries.
Yeah, I know, like even with this podcast, just being mentally in the right space is huge. Like, once you start making it a performance thing, like, I need to be at this level, you start psyching yourself out. But if you just come in and just have fun, then I find, like, you perform better even though you're not trying, which is a little weird.
Correct. Well, and I think maybe just to circle back around, circle back around to the AI thing, like I think there is regardless of what the world thinks, what the industry thinks, whatever. I AI level slick presentation of everything is not the way, because all the people that we artistically follow, whether that's musicians, visual artists, writers, filmmakers, any of those people, we love their work because they showed up authentically.
Yeah.
Something like that, like to that end. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And when
kind
you're
of have
just
a
doing,
theory. Oh, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I kind of have a theory that music kind of got dumbed down and more formulaic over time to eventually hand it over to something like AI. Like you hear more of the auto tune, like they kind of accustom us to the more roboticized style of music, and now,
Drum machines.
yeah, and now
I
you look to the AI music is just as good as what some of these major artists are putting out, like you know, because it's more formulaic. It's factory produced music.
Well, and then the people that I don't know, I'm thinking about Erica Badu, who I love to death. Erica Badu is amazing. Um, she's somebody who has really stayed off that train. Questlove has stayed off that train. SZA has stayed off that train. Like Jose James has stayed off that train. I don't know. I think Michelle Nigiocello has stayed off that train. I don't know, Robert Glasper. I'm thinking about people that we all really love, like who are D'Angelo is not on that train. Maxwell doesn't care about that. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
Janet doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
I think that artists who are authentic, I think like I don't think that will. I don't know. Like there is nothing like getting Brian. You know this better than anybody. It's nothing like getting in a room with an instrument. It's a different thing.
Oh yeah.
And so I don't think that I don't know. Here's a question for you both. Do you think AI is going to fizzle out somehow?
For me, I'm not speaking from my point of view, I think it's just going to get worse and worse, closer to like a Terminator situation where, okay, the US kind of puts the brakes on it, but China says, no way, we're not stopping. And then they get to, AGI, artificial general intelligence, or ASI, artificial super intelligence, I think it's called. Like once
Mm-hmm.
that happens, realistically, what's going to happen? Because now we have an entity that is as smart, more likely smarter than humans. So what are they going to do with that power? Because that is power.
Yeah, so like
You
if you
don't
look
think?
at that big beautiful bill that Trump just passed, he just said like the next 10 years there can be like no oversight over AI. So they're diving all the way in. You combine that with Project Stargate, it's like what $500 billion investment into building these AI facilities. So they're diving in. And when I look behind the scenes at what they're trying to do, they're essentially trying to build their new digital god. It's not just
Yeah,
a basic, intelligence on par with humans. They're trying to build something far beyond. So they're,
far
they're
beyond.
diving in,
Yeah, far beyond.
and
I don't know. I mean,
like, oh, go ahead.
no. I wonder if I don't know. I don't know. I just wonder because there's still so much art in the world in various mediums that is still living and breathing in a way that AI can't replicate.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, take for instance, just right now, this show, us talking to you, the scheduling, the booking,
Right.
us diving
Right.
into different things. How is AI going to do that? I
Right.
mean, maybe AI could schedule stuff, right?
Correct.
Maybe it could schedule stuff really, really well. But how is it going to
Right.
read the room and see, oh, this person wants to discuss this more. Let me lean in a bit. Or, oh, okay, this person seems to be
Right.
wrapping up on this subject. Let me move it along. I don't think AI has that, at least right
Right.
now, I don't think AI has that capability.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, like using, I don't know, like, so getting in, switching gears for a sec to design, using AI a little bit, or using ChatGPT, I guess, which is AI, right? A little bit to be like, oh, hey, design work, what XYZ. That's easy, fast, get info thing. That's cool. But I'm not going to sit there and like have a conversation with a
Right, right,
ChatGPT
right.
chatbot. Like I think using AI in dips and dabs as a tool makes
Yeah.
sense, but nothing in me would want to hand a project over to it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's my thought about that. Like, I think, yeah. So I don't know, but I mean,
Oh no,
yeah, go
yeah. I
ahead.
think the problem is kind of like the corporatization of everything. Like it's not about art, it's not about the humanity. Now it's all about like, can I produce this unit of something and then for as cheap
Right.
as possible and sell it and make a profit. Like, and they're trying with music, like this formulaic thing. And now they can have like this AI produce even the visuals too. Like now you're probably gonna have this fake AI musicians and have holograms do the concert, and you got y'all
No,
something
no,
missing.
no, Jesus. That's
It
creepy.
Yeah,
is creepy. Yeah.
That's creepy. Like, I don't want to watch fake prints. I mean, okay, I'll tell you something that's so non-AI, but just to make a point. Years ago, I was working at a temp job I was working through a temp agency, and it was just a quick day gig thing. And I was working with an agency that works in East Harlem, near Spanish Harlem. And they work with they're a organization that works with people who have HIV/AIDS. Okay, which was great. Anyway, during the summer, I was there for like 2 or 3 weeks in the summer, and I was walking through East Harlem, Spanish Harlem. Okay, but it was like 5 o'clock, and I would walk to the train, and I would still see groups of people out in the street or on the sidewalk with congas and guiros and shakers, and they're busy doing that at 5 o'clock while the sun's setting. I'm sorry, AI is not
yeah.
bringing you
Exactly.
that.
Not giving.
AI is not bringing you badass Latin
Yeah.
percussionists who've been here since the beginning of time playing Latin music out in the street at 5:30 on a Friday.
Yeah, that's,
Those kind of that
yeah,
kind of stuff. Or like here in Brooklyn, Fort Greene Park, they have African drum every weekend. Like 25 people with djembes, which is amazing. Like AI is not
Right.
doing that.
AI is not doing the drum
AI is
circuit.
not doing AI is not doing no, AI is not doing the jam session that you'll walk into and say, "Oh, let me go sit in."
Right.
yeah,
You know, like it's a different. So I don't know. I feel like we have to keep the art and the music very close, and kind of say the AI can like be over here, and if we need it,
right.
that's cool. But you know what I
Yeah. I
mean?
mean,
Does that make
it
sense?
makes me think back to, so I was born in 87, but when I read back or listen to interviews back about when the first drum machines came out, I think early 80s,
Mm-hmm.
either early 80s or mid 80s.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was this
Mm-hmm.
fear from drummers that, oh, we're going to be replaced. We're going to be replaced. But like when the actuality came about, people still wanted that live drummer. Like even hip hop today, they're gonna play with a live drummer,
Yeah.
because people like that energy
Yeah.
at a live show to have the real drums under that singer or artist.
Mike Reed. Yeah. The recent, which I watched it all the time for inspiration, but freaking Mike Reed, who's out with Justin Timberlake, that tour, which I think finished, but that tour was going for like a year, maybe two, somewhere in there. And I'm sorry, like that band is
Yeah.
nasty. That band is nasty. AI is not going to replicate an 18-piece band
Exactly.
at
Yeah,
that level. Like it's not going to happen. And prior to that, something I bought years ago was the Michael Jackson "This Is It"
that's
documentary,
great.
which is amazing. And
Yeah.
I used to watch that whenever I thought I was going to quit, and then I would watch it and be like, okay, you're not quitting. That's what
Nice.
happened. And then in the last like 3 years, like the Justin Timberlake doc became the same thing. But that's fine. The point is that all of those players are heavy,
Yeah.
heavyweights, heavy. And I'm sorry, AI is not going to give you that.
Right.
And something they did with the MJ doc, which they don't do in the Justin Timberlake Netflix thing. The Netflix thing is just the concert, but it's still really great. They interviewed the members of MJ's band, and every single one of them, like, their face just lit up when they were like, yeah, like we're on our A game every single day. What we're expected to, the level we're expected to operate at, and blah blah blah. But there was so much like, I'm working my ass off, but there's also so much joy in doing
Yeah,
this.
like they really, from watching
Which
that, you
is
could see they really loved him. They truly loved the man and loved playing with
yeah,
him. And I
yeah.
think,
But
I
he
was
was
just gonna
yeah.
say,
Go ahead.
like, for me, if I'm playing with a buddy who I've known for say 10 years, we're gonna play in a certain way. We're gonna get into a certain groove because not only
Right.
do I know you,
Right.
instrumentally, musically, I know you personally, and the personal does
Right.
drift
Mhm.
in. You know what I mean? It does drift in. So,
Sure.
if
Sure.
you could, yeah,
Sure.
if you could, I mean,
Sure.
if I could choose, I would just play with my friends and tour around. You know, that's what I'd be doing. But it's pretty difficult. You know, like I said, in LA, I'm mostly taking session work with people who don't like me, just to get the money. And eventually I got burnt out. You know, to be honest, I just got burnt out on that. And I came back east where my family is. And I've been in New York for, I mean, like 6 or
Right.
7 years now.
Yeah, my dad's my aunt and my grandma on my dad's side live on Long Island, and so I spent a lot of time in Smithtown
Oh,
and Stony
wow.
Brook.
Okay.
And Jones Beach was the thing, and
Yeah,
all that stuff about Long
I'm
Island
out in the
stuff.
woods. I'm out in Ridge. So near
Okay.
Riverhead. Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
like 15 minutes, yeah,
Uh-huh.
15
I know where
minutes
you
away
are.
from Riverhead.
Yeah, I know where you are. Um, but yeah, no, I think like, and even I don't know, like it's a smaller thing, but like this show, I mean, I played with this music director for like a month, and it was all going. We kicked ass and had a great time from day one. And by the time we got to the middle of the run, we sounded like we'd been playing together a hell of a lot
Yeah.
longer. Because, but that's another thing. When you do all this gig to gig shit, you don't get to develop. Like when I take my jazz group out, I hire people, I do it. It's awesome. There's videos on YouTube, you can watch whatever. But it's not the same kind of playing that you play with the same people over and over for an extended. Like when I worked with this music
Right,
director 5 nights a week for a month, we found this, like we found that and got there, and it was awesome because then you're in flow state and you're just doing, and he's taking a solo and I'm comping like we're on a jazz gig, and then we get to measure blah, and then we're doing this, and you just go, it's a different, you sound like you've been playing a lot longer
Well, it's an area I
at
think
that
that a
level.
lot of musicians don't get to that Chris Dave level. You know, they just,
Right.
or Michael Jackson or Prince. You know, most people are not getting to that level, and that's okay. But
No.
there can be something different about some of these people who do get to that level. You know, I'm not saying they're going to be great people, but musically, it's interesting that they've been able to blow past, their peers.
Nope. Yeah, I think we lost it. I could thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time.
All right, thanks, guys.